Time to talk a bit about animal recycling within the Wehrmacht. For this we look at an undated pamphlet, likely from March-April 1944, based on the other documents surrounding it. Additionally, there's further information inside to allow us to date it. And if you're interested in German pamphlets, be sure to check out our crowdfunding campaign on the translation of the Sturmgewehr 44 Assault Platoon Tactics pamphlet. The introduction on the animal recycling notes that Germany was always short on resources, and as such that even before the war resources had to be imported. It adds that due to the war overseas, imports are not a possibility, with a note that this should be obvious. Finally, it is noted, in order to give the units an incentive for collection activities and to achieve an increase in deliveries, the following rewards are granted by businesses of the Economic Command 208 in Bobruisk. So before we look at the bounties or rewards, we need to look at what a Wirtschaftskommando, literally economic command, is. For this we need to take a short look at the Wirtschaftsorganisation Ost, the economic organization East. Its goal was the exploitation of occupied territories in the Soviet Union. As such, it was created during the planning and preparation of Operation Barbarossa. Territorially, this organization was organized in Wirtschaftsinspektionen, literally economic inspectorates. A map from March 1941 shows that the Soviet Union was divided in 4 such inspectorates. And these inspectorates themselves were divided into Wirtschaftskommandos that performed their exploitation. According to Tessin, this particular Wirtschaftskommando dates back to 1941. Wirtschaftskommando 208 established February 1943 an army group center from Wirtschaftskommando Bobruisk, which was established 9th June 1941 as Wirtschaftskommando for Special Use Bunzlau, dissolved summer 1944. So let us look at the particular rewards that are outlined in the document. First are hides and furs. For every 4 hides or furs delivered, 1 tanned or dressed sheepskin shall be issued. Yet there's more, because it was made clear that only materials from certain sources were allowed to be traded in. On delivery to Wirtschaftskommando 208, a certificate from the unit commander must be presented certifying that the hides and skins delivered come exclusively from slaughtering by the civilian population. It is further noted that hides and furs that were produced by the butcher companies or troops themselves had to be submitted to a different organization. The next part was about wool, flax and hemp. For every 5 kilos of wool, a pair of Russian felt boots, valinkis, are supplied, and for fly flax or hemp long fiber, rope goods are delivered. Next were waste fats and animal cadavers. For 100 kg of pure fat waste, 80 pieces of soap with 500 grams delivered. In contrast, for 100 kg of dead cow, one got 40 pieces of soap, and for 100 kg of dead horse, only 30 pieces of soap. Finally, there was bristles and animal hair. The delivering unit will be supplied with fur brushes, brushes or paint brushes as desired. Finally, it is noted that not only dead animals and waste qualified for getting soap or soap powder, but also the other materials as well. Whereas I guess soap was probably in high demand. The final part of the pamphlet has the heading Annahmestellen, literally points of acceptance. Probably best translated with collection points or organizations. It is noted, delivery is made prior notification to Wirtschaftskommando 208 Bobruisk. Group W, Stolypinstraße 45, for hides, furs and waste fat in the tannery, Sandstraße 41, carcass in the rendering plant Tioka, house number 52, village exit at Rogatchevce on the left. Wool, flyfax and flyhemp at Ostlandfaser GmbH, Stolpinstraße 43. Bristles and animal hair in the collar and brush factory Friedhofstraße 23. This part is really interesting in many ways. First off, you can see the process was, at least on paper, quite organized. A preliminary notification to the Wirtschaftskommando Literary Economic Command was required, or at least suggested, before the material could be dropped off. Now, Bobruisk is Bobruisk and is a city in Belarus. Yet the street addresses are in German. As such, it seems that at least some streets were renamed, and indeed you might have come across various photos of street signs or praising of such signs after the city was retaken. Yet there is even more, namely Ostlandfaser GmbH. Literally means Eastern Lands Fiber, whereas the GmbH stands for Gesellschaft mit beschränkter Haftung, which basically is the German version of the limited company. To quote Wikipedia for a change, in a limited company, the liability of members or subscribers of the company is limited to what they have invested or guaranteed to the company. Some of you might ask, why is this of any importance? Well, I'm rather certain that this was actually a private German company. After all, it had a legal designation, and remember, this company, or at least this office, is located within Belarus in 1944. If you look at the map, you will notice it is actually further away from Berlin than from Moscow. The involvement of the German businesses into Operation Barbarossa and the exploitation of occupied territories is a different topic, although it is important to keep in mind that significant representatives of German industry not only supported the decision of the political military leadership to conquer European Russia in 1941 by exacting a war on two fronts, but also decisively promoted it through their active participation in organizational preparations. Now finally we look at the header of the pamphlet itself. Since there is a certain lack of data and also some potential pitfalls, it starts with Army Headquarters Pamphlet for the Troops. Soldiers! Improve your own troop supply. There are two important parts missing. First the date and second which army in particular. So we know this pamphlet is from the Army Headquarters. Be careful here, because the literal translation would be the Army High Command. The problem is that Heer and Armee are both translated with Army, whereas Army can be the formations above the corps, but also like the US Army or German Army, a whole branch in the armed forces. Anyway, the problem is it is not stated which army headquarters we are dealing with. Yet, we have several other points of information to determine it. First, Wirtschaftskommando 208 is noted, and it also includes a location, Babruysk, which is Babruysk. We know that Babruysk was retaken by the Red Army in June 1944. So we know this pamphlet was sent out somewhere before. Yet there's some information as well. We have a collection of files here, and this pamphlet is preceded and succeeded by a lot of files of the quartermaster from the formation Choruk 532. So we need to make a short excursion on what a Choruk is. This is a short name, and the long version is Kommandant Rückwärtiges Armeegebiet Choruk, which translates to Commander Rear Army Area. As the name suggests, this is a rear area formation. It was on duty in the immediate rear area of the front to supplement the army it belonged to. In spring of 1942, there were 17 Choruks in the entire German army, 15 of them on the soil of the occupied Soviet Union. These formations had military and occupational duties to fulfill. The job was to support the army that they were assigned to. Hartmann lists for Choruk 532 a total of 11 tasks, and such as securing the rear area of the army against partisans and defending important facilities, securing the economic registration, maintaining roads, propaganda and various other tasks. But back to the files of the Choruk 532. They are dated around March and April 1944. Of course, we can't be certain that these files were not mixed up or something. As such, let us look at the German army that was stationed near Babruysk in 1944. Luckily, we see that during Operation Bagaton, the 9th Army was encircled at Babruysk. And if we look at the units that they were assigned to the 9th Army, we see the Choruk 532 shows up in July 1943 and stays with it even in 1945. This means this pamphlet was very likely issued by the 9th Army, and that the order within the other documents is likely also correct, so around March and April 1944. Well, I hope you learned something new. Thank you to Andrew for reviewing the script. Thank you to all my supporters on Patreon and Subscribestar. As always, source list in the description. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you for watching and see you next time.